Hey guys, tonight we're stepping through a doorway you've probably only seen in old photographs and black and white films. We are drifting into the everyday rhythms of 1950s America, specifically into the life of a housewife whose mornings began before the sun and whose evenings ended long after everyone else had gone to bed. The kind of woman who could iron a dress shirt with hospital corners, bake a pie from memory, and smile through exhaustion like it was written in her job description. Before we begin, I want to say a sincere thank you to the viewer who suggested this topic. Your ideas shape this channel in ways I cannot fully express, and I'm genuinely grateful you are here. If you enjoy these quiet trips into history, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And speaking of ways to listen, the channel is now live on Spotify, so if you prefer your nostalgia in podcast form, the link is waiting for you in the description below. Now, settle in, dim the lights if you like, turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum, get yourself comfortable, really comfortable, the kind of comfortable where moving feels like a betrayal of your current position. Because tonight, we are going to walk through a full day in the life of a 1950s housewife, and we are going to do it slowly, gently, with all the sensory details that make history feel like memory. Have you ever wondered what a Tuesday morning actually felt like in 1955? What sounds filled the kitchen before the family woke up? What did laundry day smell like when everything was hung outside to dry? How did dinner get on the table every single night without a microwave, without a dishwasher, without the shortcuts we take for granted now? What did it feel like to move through a home where every task had a rhythm, every chore had a place, and every day followed a script written by tradition, expectation, and quiet determination? Could you wake at dawn to start the coffee, press your husband's shirt before he left for work, pack lunches by hand, scrub floors on your knees, plan meals 3 days ahead, and still have dinner ready at 6 sharp with a smile that suggested none of it was hard? And just like that, it is 1955. The coffee is already on. The house smells faintly of yesterday's pot roast and this morning's fresh bread. Somewhere down the street a lawnmower hums to life. The day is just beginning. The alarm clock rings at 5:30, a sharp metallic jangle that cuts through the soft darkness like a polite emergency. You do not hit snooze because snooze does not exist yet, and even if it did, there would be no time for it. Your feet find the cool floor, your robe finds your shoulders, and before your eyes are fully opened, your body is already moving through the motions it has memorized. The house is still asleep, quiet in that heavy blanketed way that only pre-dawn silence can be, and for just a moment, this time belongs to you alone. You pad quietly down the hallway, careful not to wake anyone, your slippers whispering against the floorboards. The darkness is thick but familiar, and you navigate it without thought, one hand trailing along the wall for balance, the other pulling your robe tighter against the morning chill. The house in these early hours feels like a different place entirely, smaller somehow, more yours, a space you inhabit alone before it fills with voices and needs and the endless hum of family life. In the bathroom you splash cold water on your face, the shock of it waking you more thoroughly than the alarm ever could. You smooth your hair, still flattened from sleep, and catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror. Tired eyes, the faint line between your brows that seems to deepen each year. You look away quickly, because mornings are not for reflection. They are for motion, for productivity, for getting things done before the rest of the world stirs. You move downstairs, each step creaking softly under your weight, a sound so constant you barely notice it anymore. The living room is grey with pre-dawn light, shadows pooling in the corners, furniture taking shape slowly as your eyes adjust. You do not turn on the lamps yet. There is something peaceful about moving through the half-dark, something that feels almost sacred, as though you are the only person awake in the entire neighbourhood. The kitchen is your destination, your command centre, the room where the day truly begins. You push open the door and feel the temperature drop, the chill of a room that has been closed up all night, waiting. Your breath mists faintly in the air. You reach for the light switch, and the overhead bulb flickers to life, casting everything in a warm yellow glow that makes the cold seem less severe. You tie your apron around your waist, the same floral print you have worn for 3 years now, the fabric soft and faded from countless washings. The strings know exactly where to meet at your back, your fingers tying the bow without needing to see it. This small ritual, this wrapping of yourself in purpose, marks the official start of your day. The clock on the wall ticks steadily, each second a gentle reminder that time is moving, that breakfast will need to be ready in an hour, that there is work to be done. You glance at it out of habit. 5:38, right on schedule. Outside, the world is still dark, the streetlights glowing softly through the kitchen window. Somewhere in the distance a dog barks once, then falls silent. A car engine turns over, coughs, catches. Someone else beginning their day, their own quiet routine unfolding in another kitchen down the street. But for now, this moment is yours. The house breathes softly around you, your family still lost in sleep, and you stand alone in the warm light of your kitchen, ready to begin the work that no one will see, the work that makes everything else possible. You take a deep breath, roll your shoulders back, and reach for the coffee tin. The day has started. The kitchen is cold, properly cold, the kind that makes you grateful for wool slippers and thick cotton robes. You move toward the stove first, opening the cast iron door and nudging yesterday's coals back to life with a poker that has seen 1,000 mornings just like this one. The kindling catches, the flames build, and warmth begins to creep slowly into the room. Then comes the coffee, measured carefully into the percolator, water poured from the kettle, the whole contraption set on the burner to bubble and hiss its way toward that first essential cup. The stove door swings open with a familiar creak, and you peer inside at the bed of grey ash dotted with a few stubborn orange embers. They glow faintly in the darkness of the firebox, barely alive, but alive enough. You grab the poker from its hook on the wall, the handle worn smooth from years of use, and gently prod the coals, shifting them, exposing the hot cores beneath the ash. A small plume of sparks rises and dies. You reach for the kindling box, selecting a few thin pieces of wood, dry and brittle, and arrange them carefully over the embers. The trick is not to smother them, not to rush, but to build the fire gradually, giving it room to breathe and grow. You add a slightly larger piece, then another, watching as the flames begin to lick upward, tentative at first, then bolder. The fire catches properly now, crackling softly, and you add a split log, feeling the heat already beginning to radiate outward. You close the stove door but leave the damper open, letting air feed the flames. Within minutes, the cast iron surface will be hot enough to boil water, hot enough to cook on, hot enough to chase the morning chill from the room. While the stove warms, you turn your attention to the coffee. The tin sits on the shelf above the counter, red and white, the label cheerful and familiar. You pry off the lid and breathe in the rich, dark scent, earthy and slightly bitter, a smell that means morning more than anything else in the world. You scoop 3 rounded tablespoons into the percolator basket, the grounds falling in soft mounds, and snap the basket into place. The kettle is already filled from last night, sitting on the counter where you left it. You lift it, feeling the weight of the water inside, and set it on the stovetop directly over the firebox. The metal ticks softly as it begins to heat. You pour water into the percolator's chamber, filling it to the line etched inside, and set the whole thing beside the kettle, waiting for the stove to reach temperature. The kitchen is coming alive now, The fire crackles and pops. The warmth spreads outward in waves, melting the chill from the corners of the room. You stand close to the stove, hands extended toward its surface, letting the heat seep into your fingers, your palms, your wrists. Outside, the sky's beginning to lighten, the darkness softening to a deep blue-grey. The kettle starts to hiss, a quiet whisper at first, then louder, more insistent. You move it to a cooler spot on the stovetop and position the percolator directly over the heat. Within moments, the coffee begins its slow alchemy. Water rising through the tube, splashing over the grounds, darkening with each cycle. The sound is rhythmic, hypnotic, a gentle burbling that fills the kitchen with promise. The smell follows soon after, rich and strong, curling through the air like an invitation. You close your eyes and breathe it in, feeling something in your chest loosen, relax. This is the smell of readiness, of competence, of a day beginning the way it should. The percolator bubbles steadily now, the glass knob on top showing coffee the colour of caramel, deepening with each pass. You let it work patient, knowing that good coffee cannot be rushed. The stove ticks and hums beneath it, the fire burning steady and strong. You glance at the clock. 5:52. The house will wake soon. Your husband will appear, expecting his cup. The children will stumble downstairs, hungry and half asleep. But right now, the coffee is still yours, the kitchen is still yours, and the day, though started, has not yet made its demands. You pour yourself a cup, the coffee steaming and dark, and wrap your hands around the warm porcelain. You take the first sip, feeling it burn gently down your throat, waking you from the inside out. Now you are ready. Breakfast is not a casual affair. It is a production, a carefully timed sequence of frying, flipping, toasting and pouring that must be ready the moment your husband and children appear at the table. Eggs sizzle in butter. Bacon crisps in the cast-iron skillet. Toast browns under the watchful eye of a broiler that has no timer and no forgiveness. Orange juice is poured into small glass tumblers. Cereal is measured into bowls, and everything is arranged just so because presentation matters, even at 6:45 on a Wednesday morning. You crack the eggs one by one against the edge of the bowl, letting them slip into the waiting butter with a soft hiss. 4 eggs today. 2 for your husband, 1 for each of the children. You have learned to judge doneness by sound and smell, the way the whites firm up at the edges, the way the yolks tremble when you tilt the pan. You slide the spatula beneath each one, flipping gently, careful not to break the fragile golden centres. The bacon is already going in the cast-iron skillet, strips laid side by side, fat beginning to render and pool. The smell is incredible, salty and rich, filling the kitchen with a warmth that has nothing to do with temperature. You turn each piece with a fork, watching as it curls and crisps, the edges darkening to a deep caramel brown. Grease pops and spatters, and you step back slightly, turning your face away, but you do not leave. Bacon requires vigilance. The toaster is next, though toaster is a generous term for the wire rack you set directly over the stove burner. You lay 4 slices of white bread across it, watching carefully as the undersides begin to brown. The line between golden and burnt is thin, and there is no bell, no pop-up mechanism, just your attention and your timing. You flip each slice with your fingers, quick enough not to burn, and watch as the second side toasts to a matching shade of warm brown. While the toast finishes, you pour orange juice from the glass pitcher in the icebox, the liquid cold and pulpy, bright as sunshine. 4 small tumblers, filled precisely halfway, arranged at each place setting on the table. You have already set out plates, forks, knives, napkins folded into neat triangles. The butter dish sits in the centre, softened just enough to spread easily. The jam jar beside it, strawberry, homemade from last summer's berries. The eggs are ready. You slide them onto plates, 2 on your husband's, 1 on each of the children's. The bacon comes. Next, 2 strips each, grease blotted quickly on a folded paper towel. The toast is buttered while still warm, the butter melting into the bread, soaking in, turning it glossy and rich. You carry the plates to the table, setting each one down gently, adjusting the placement so everything looks intentional. Your husband's coffee cup is already there, waiting to be filled. The children will have milk poured into small glasses, cold and fresh. The cereal is a backup, a safety net for the child who might refuse eggs, who might claim not to be hungry, who might need the familiar comfort of cornflakes and sugar. You measure it into a bowl, set it on the counter with the milk bottle beside it, just in case. The kitchen smells like a diner now, like breakfast as it is supposed to be, hearty and hot and made with care. You wipe your hands on your apron, glance at the clock. 6:43. Any moment now, you will hear footsteps on the stairs, the creak of the floorboards, the sound of your family waking to a meal that appeared, as if by magic, exactly when they needed it. You straighten the tablecloth one last time, smooth a wrinkle that probably no one will notice. You step back and survey your work. The plates are warm, the food is ready, the table is set. This is your art, your offering, your proof that you're doing this right. And when they come downstairs, hungry and still half asleep, they will sit down and eat without question, because this is what mornings look like. What mornings have always looked like. You have made it so. He appears at the table in his pressed shirt and narrow tie, hair combed with precision, shoes shined to a dull gleam. You pour his coffee, set his plate down gently, and watch as he eats with the quiet efficiency of a man who has somewhere important to be. You hand him his briefcase at the door, adjust his collar one last time, and send him off with a kiss on the cheek and a cheerful, "Have a good day," even though you know he will not think about you again until he walks back through that door 12 hours from now. He eats without speaking at first, fork moving steadily from plate to mouth, eggs disappearing in neat, methodical bites. He reads the morning paper propped against the sugar bowl, eyes scanning headlines about politics and sports and things happening in the world beyond this kitchen. You refill his coffee cup without being asked, the stream of dark liquid steaming faintly as it hits the porcelain. The children chatter around him, their voices bright and overlapping, but he does not engage. Not really. He offers the occasional, or "that's so," but his attention remains on the paper, on the coffee, on the internal calculations of his day ahead. You have learned not to take this personally. Morning is not his time for conversation. Morning is fuel and preparation, a launching pad for the hours to come. You move around the table, wiping a smudge of jam from your daughter's cheek, reminding your son to finish. His milk, keeping the household rhythm steady while your husband occupies his own quiet bubble of focus. He folds the paper precisely when he finishes, creasing it along its original lines, and drains the last of his coffee in one long swallow. He stands, brushing crumbs from his lap, and you are already moving toward the hall closet, retrieving his hat from the shelf, his briefcase from where it sat waiting by the door. You hand him both, and he takes them with a nod, settling the hat on his head with a practice motion, checking his reflection briefly in the hall mirror. You step closer, reaching up to adjust his collar where it is folded slightly under his tie. Your fingers smooth the fabric, straighten the line of his shoulder. He stands still for this, patient, allowing you to fuss for just a moment. It is a small intimacy, this straightening, this tending, and it has become part of the morning script. "Ready?" you ask, though it is not really a question. He nods, shifting the briefcase to his other hand, and you open the door for him. The morning air rushes in, cool and fresh, carrying the smell of cut grass and distant car exhaust. The neighbourhood is awake now, men in suits walking toward bus stops, cars backing out of driveways, the whole street humming with the energy of beginnings. You step out onto the porch with him, barefoot despite the chill, and he turns back just before descending the steps. You lean in, pressing a kiss to his cheek, your lips brushing the slight stubble he missed while shaving. "Have a good day," you say, your voice warm and bright, the same words you say every morning, a benediction and a release. He echoes something back, a thanks or you too, and then he is walking down the path, his stride purposeful, his shoulders square. You watch him reach the sidewalk, turn left toward the bus stop, join the small stream of other men in hats and suits, all moving in the same direction, all carrying briefcases, all leaving their homes behind. You stand on the porch until he disappears around the corner, a habit you cannot quite break, some superstitious part of you believing that watching him leave safely ensures he will return safely. The street quiets again. A bird calls from the oak tree. Someone's sprinkler clicks to life. You turn and step back inside, closing the door softly behind you. The breakfast dishes wait. The children need to finish getting ready. The day is rolling forward and you have work to do. But for just a second, standing in the hallway, you let yourself feel the silence his absence leaves behind. Then you tie your apron tighter and head back to the kitchen. The children are a different kind of chaos, louder, messier, requiring constant supervision and gentle redirection. You comb their hair, check their fingernails, inspect their clothes for stains or loose buttons, and send them back upstairs twice before they finally meet your standards. Lunches are packed in small metal boxes, sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, apples tucked beside thermoses of milk. You walk them to the corner, wave as they board the school bus, and stand there just a moment longer, watching the bus disappear down the tree-lined street. Your daughter comes down first, her dress buttoned crooked, one sock higher than the other, her hair a nest of tangles from sleep. You turn her gently by the shoulders, undo the buttons and start again, this time aligning each one properly, smoothing the fabric flat. She squirms, impatient, already thinking about whatever game she will play at recess, and you have to remind her twice to stand still, hair next. You guide her to the kitchen chair, comb in hand, and begin working through the knots with careful, gentle strokes. She winces and complains, and you murmur apologies even as you continue, because hair does not comb itself, and she will thank you later, or at least she will not be embarrassed at school. You gather it into a ponytail, smooth and high, secured with a rubber band and tied with a ribbon that matches her dress. Your son appears, shirt untucked, shoes on the wrong feet, a small smudge of toothpaste dried at the corner of his mouth. You wet a cloth and wipe his face, ignoring his protests, then kneel to help him switch his shoes to the correct feet. He insists he can tie them himself, and you let him try, watching patiently as his fingers fumble through the loops, the laces ending up in a lopsided knot that will come undone by lunchtime. You do not fix it. Small victories matter. Fingernails are next. A quick inspection of both children's hands, checking for dirt, for ragged edges, for anything that might draw a teacher's disapproving eye. Your daughters are fine. Your sons are not. You send him to the bathroom to scrub them properly, and he trudges off, sighing dramatically, as though you have asked him to scale a mountain. While he's gone, you pack their lunches, an assembly line of components you could do in your sleep. 2 metal lunch boxes, one red, one blue, each dented and scratched from years of use. Sandwiches first, peanut butter and jelly for your daughter, bologna and cheese for your son, each wrapped carefully in wax paper and folded at the ends. You add an apple to each box, shined on your apron until the skin gleams. Cookies, 2 each, from the batch you baked yesterday. Thermoses filled with cold milk, lids screwed tight. You snap the lunch boxes closed, the latches clicking with finality, and set them by the front door alongside their school bags. Your son returns, hands pink from scrubbing, and you nod approval. Coats are next, even though the day will warm, because mornings are still cool, and you will not have them catching cold on your watch. You hustle them out the door, down the front steps, and onto the sidewalk. The school bus stop is just 2 houses down, and already a small cluster of children has gathered, lunchboxes in hand, voices overlapping in excited chatter. Your children run, ahead, eager to join their friends, and you follow at a slower pace, arms crossed against the morning chill. The bus appears at the end of the street, yellow and loud, its brakes squealing as it slows. The children line up without being told, a habit drilled into them by repetition and routine. The door folds open, and one by one they climb aboard, your daughter first, then your son, each turning to wave at you from the window. You wave back, smiling, your hand raised high so they can see you clearly. The bus door closes, the engine rumbles, and then it is pulling away, carrying your children off into their day, their world separate from yours for the next 7 hours. You stand there a moment longer, even after the bus has turned the corner and disappeared. The street is quiet now. The other mothers already heading back to their homes, back to their own waiting work. A breeze stirs the leaves overhead, and you pull your cardigan tighter around your shoulders. The house will be empty when you return. Quiet. Yours again, at least until 3 o'clock when the bus brings them back, hungry and loud and full of stories you will only half hear while making their snacks. But for now, you turn and walk back up the path, the morning stretching out before you, full of tasks that will fill the silence. The kitchen, so carefully arranged an hour ago, now looks like a small, cheerful disaster. Plates stacked haphazardly, crumbs scattered across the tablecloth, butter softening in its dish, jam left open beside the toast rack. You move through the mess with practiced efficiency, scraping plates into the trash, stacking dishes beside the sink, wiping down the table with a damp cloth that smells faintly of lemon and responsibility. You stand in the doorway for a moment, surveying the damage. It is never as bad as it looks, but it always looks bad enough to make you sigh. The children's milk glasses sit half full, rings of white residue clinging to the sides. Your husband's coffee cup holds a last cold sip, dark and bitter. Toast crusts lie abandoned on plates, edges torn where eager teeth pulled away the soft centres. You begin with the glasses first, carrying them 2 at a time to the counter beside the sink. The milk gets poured down the drain, the glasses rinsed quickly under cold water to prevent the film from setting. Coffee cups next, then plates, each one scraped clean over the trash bin, the uneaten bits falling away, egg yolks smeared across white porcelain, bacon grease congealed and cloudy. The butter dish has softened in the warm kitchen, the stick slumped to one side, no longer holding its shape. You cover it with its glass dome and return it to the icebox where the cold will firm it up again by lunchtime. The jam jar gets a similar treatment, lid screwed tight, sticky fingerprints wiped from the glass before it goes back on the shelf. The tablecloth is dotted with crumbs, tiny constellations of toast and cereal scattered across the floral pattern. You lift the corners, gathering them toward the centre, creating a pouch that holds the debris, and carry the whole bundle to the back door. Outside, you shake it vigorously, watching the crumbs fall onto the grass where the birds will find them. The cloth flutters in the breeze, releasing dust and flour particles that catch the morning light. Back inside, you smooth the tablecloth flat again, brushing away the last stray crumbs with your palm, and begin collecting the silverware. Forks sticky with egg, knives smeared with butter, spoons that dipped into sugar bowls and jam jars. They clatter into a small pile, waiting their turn at the sink. The toast rack still holds one forgotten slice, cold and hard now, no longer worth saving. You toss it into the trash and wipe the rack clean, setting it back in its place on the counter. The napkins, crumpled and spotted with jelly, go into the laundry basket. The salt and pepper shakers are returned to the centre of the table, standing, at attention like small ceramic soldiers. You wipe down the table itself now, the damp cloth moving in broad circular strokes, collecting crumbs, erasing sticky spots where syrup dripped, lifting the faint film of butter and grease that somehow migrated from plates to wood. The cloth grows grey and damp, and you rinse it in the sink, wring it out, and make another pass, this time with clean water, leaving the surface smooth and fresh. The chairs are pushed back in, aligned evenly with the table's edge. The floor beneath them is swept quickly, the broom making short work of toast fragments and scattered cereal. You bend to pick up a dropped napkin, a stray spoon that rolled under the sideboard, a button that has come loose from someone's shirt and will need to be sewn back on later. The kitchen is taking shape again, returning to the order it held before breakfast disrupted it. You carry the stack of dishes to the counter, arranging them beside the sink in a logical sequence. Plates, bowls, cups, silverware. The leftovers, what few there are, go into covered dishes and into the icebox. The bacon grease is poured carefully into a tin can, saved for cooking later. You step back, hands on your hips, and assess your work. The table is clear, the counters are organised, the floor is clean. In half an hour this room was transformed from orderly to chaotic and back again, and no one will ever see the work it took, the constant tending, the small decisions about what to save and what to discard. But you see it, you know. And now the dishes wait. The sink fills with hot water, steam rising as you add a squirt of dish soap and watch it foam into soft peaks. Each plate, each cup, each fork is washed by hand, rinsed under running water, and set carefully in the drying rack. Your hands are wet, your apron is damp, and the whole process takes longer than you would ever admit to your daughters someday. When they ask why you did not just get a dishwasher, you plug the drain and turn the hot water on full, watching the stream pour into the deep porcelain basin. The water is nearly scalding, hot enough to make your hands pink, hot enough to cut through grease and dried egg yolk. You add dish soap, just a squirt from the bottle, and the water blooms into suds, white and frothy, rising toward the rim of the sink. The dishes go in one by one, plates first, sliding beneath the surface with a soft splash. You pick up the dishcloth, a square of worn cotton that has scrubbed 1,000 meals, and begin working. The first plate is easy, just crumbs and a smear of jam, and it comes clean quickly under the circular motion of the cloth. You rinse it under the tap, clear water sluicing away the soap, and set it in the wooden drying rack that sits beside the sink. The second plate is harder, egg yolk dried into a thin yellow film that resists your first pass. You scrub more firmly, the cloth bunched in your fist, working the soap into the stubborn spots until they finally lift, rinse, rack. The rhythm is established now, a steady pattern of wash, rinse, stack. The cups are next, their interiors ringed with milk or coffee stains. You turn each one upside down over your hand, soaping the inside first, then the outside, then the handle. The glass tumblers are lighter, more delicate, and you handle them with care, mindful of the chip on the rim of one that has been there for months, but has not yet earned the glass a place in the trash. The silverware waits in a tangled pile, and you fish each piece out of the soapy water, washing the forks tine by tine, the knives blade and handle, the spoons inside and out. They gleam when you rinse them, droplets of water clinging briefly before falling away. You stand them upright in the slotted section of the drying rack, handles down so the water will drain properly. The serving dishes are last, the heavy platter that held the bacon, the bowl that held the scrambled eggs. These require more effort, more scrubbing, the grease clinging stubbornly to the ceramic. You change the water halfway through, the suds grey and tired, and refill the sink with fresh hot water and a new squirt of soap. The skillet sits on the stove, still warm, crusted with bacon fat and browned bits. You let it cool a moment longer while you finish the regular dishes, then carry it to the sink and set to work. Cast iron requires a different touch. No harsh scrubbing, no soap if you can avoid it, just hot water and a stiff brush to lift the residue without stripping the seasoning. You work carefully, preserving the pan's blackened surface, rinsing it clean and setting it on the stovetop to air dry. Your hands are pruned now, fingertips wrinkled and soft, palms slick with soap residue. The front of your apron is damp where you leaned against the counter, and there is a small puddle of water on the floor where drips escape the sink. You will mop that in a moment. The drying rack is full, dishes stacked and leaning, water trickling down into the grooved drain board beneath. You wipe your hands on a towel, flex your fingers to work out the stiffness, and survey your work. Clean dishes, clean sink, clean counters. In a few hours, you will do this again after lunch. Tonight, after dinner, you will do it once more. The dishes are a constant, a task that never finishes, only pauses, waiting for the next meal to create the next pile. But for now, they are done. You pull the plug, and the soapy water drains away with a satisfied gurgle. The house does not clean itself, and in 1955 there are no shortcuts. You move from room to room with a dustcloth, a broom, a mop, a bucket of soapy water, tidying as you go. Beds are made with hospital corners, pillows fluffed and arranged just so. Rugs are beaten outside, furniture is dusted, floors are swept, and everything is returned to its proper place. Because a tidy home is a reflection of a tidy mind, or so the magazines keep telling you. You start upstairs, where the bedrooms hold the evidence of this morning's rush. Your daughter's room first, the bed unmade, sheets tangled, blanket puddled on the floor where she kicked it off in the night. You strip it all back, smoothing the bottom sheet flat, tucking the corners under the mattress with sharp, precise folds, hospital corners that hold firm and look crisp. The top sheet goes on next, pulled tight, then the blanket, then the bedspread, smoothed with both hands until not a wrinkle remains. Pillows are fluffed, punched back into shape and arranged against the headboard. The small stuffed bear that sleeps with her every night is returned to its place beside them. You pick up the clothes scattered on the floor, a dress that did not make the cut this morning, socks balled up and tossed aside, and add them to the growing laundry pile. Your son's room is worse, a terrain of toy soldiers, comic books, and mysteriously sticky surfaces. You make the bed with the same care, the same tight corners, even though you know he will destroy it the moment he climbs into night. Toys are gathered and returned to the wooden box at the foot of the bed. Books are stacked on the shelf. The small model airplane hanging from the ceiling spins slowly in the breeze from the open window. Your own bedroom is last, the bed already half made from this morning, but you pull everything back and start fresh because standards matter. You smooth the sheets, tuck the blanket, arrange the pillows, and stand back to assess. The room looks calm now, orderly, a place where rest might actually happen. Downstairs you move room by room with a dustcloth, a soft square of old flannel that picks up dust like magic. You wipe the mantel, the side tables, the window sills, the banister, watching the cloth turn grey as it collects the fine layer of grime that settles on everything, always, no matter how often you clean. The wooden furniture gets special attention, a wipe down followed by a light, application of furniture polish, rubbed in with circular motions until the wood glows. The living room rug needs beating, and you roll it up, hefting it over your shoulder, and carry it out to the backyard. You drape it over the clothesline and retrieve the rug beater from the shed, a woven wicker paddle that has seen decades of use. You swing it with force, watching clouds of dust rise with each strike, the satisfying thwack echoing across the yard. You beat the rug until no more dust emerges, until your arm aches, then carry it back inside and unroll it precisely where it belongs. The floors are swept next, each room in turn, the broom gathering crumbs and dust and the mysterious debris that appears from nowhere. The hardwood floors in the living room and hallway are mopped, the buckets sloshing with warm, soapy water, the mop wrung out and pushed in long, even strokes that leave the wood gleaming. You work backward from the far corner toward the door so you do not trap yourself or step on the clean floor. The bathroom is scrubbed, sink and toilet and tub, each surface given the attention it requires. The mirror is polished until it shines. Fresh towels are hung on the rack. The small rug is shaken out the window. You move through the house one final time, straightening a picture frame, adjusting a lamp, returning a book to the shelf. Everything has a place, and everything is in it. The house breathes easier now, lighter, as though it too feels the relief of order restored. You carry the cleaning supplies back to the closet, the bucket emptied and rinsed, the mop wrung dry, the dustcloth added to the laundry. Your back aches faintly, a reminder that cleaning is physical work, real work, the kind that leaves you tired in a way that feels earned. The house is ready now, clean, tidy, waiting, and already you know it is beginning to come undone again. If today is Monday, then today is laundry day, and laundry day is an event. The wringer washer stands in the basement like a mechanical judge, ready to test your patience and your upper body strength. You sort the whites from the colours, fill the tub with hot water, add soap, and feed the clothes through the wringer one piece at a time, watching as water streams back into the basin below. It is labour, real labour, the kind that leaves your arms sore and your back aching. But by afternoon, the clothesline will be full, sheets snapping in the breeze like cheerful flags of domestic victory. You descend the basement stairs carefully, your arms full of laundry baskets, each one piled high with the week's accumulation of clothes, towels and linens. The basement is cool and slightly damp, the concrete floor smooth under your feet, the air carrying the faint mineral smell of earth and old stone. The wringer washer waits in the corner, a white enamel beast with a motor that rumbles like distant thunder. You set the baskets down and begin sorting, a process that requires more thought than it should. Whites in one pile, colours in another, delicates in a third. Your husband's work shirts, your children's school clothes, the bed sheets and towels and undergarments, all separated by type and colour and degree of soiling. The truly dirty items, the grass-stained trousers, the gravy-spotted aprons, go into their own pile for extra attention. The washer's tub is filled with a hose connected to the basement sink, hot water pouring in until it reaches the fill line marked inside. You add soap, a cupful of white flakes that dissolve slowly, turning the water cloudy and soft. The agitator in the centre of the tub begins to move when you flip the switch, churning back and forth, creating small waves that slosh against the sides. You load the whites first, pushing them down into the water, watching them darken as they absorb the heat and soap. The machine agitates for 10 minutes, maybe 12, the motor humming steadily, the clothes tumbling and twisting in the sudsy water. You stand nearby, leaning against the basement wall, arms crossed, waiting. There's no walking away from laundry day. The wringer requires supervision, attention, respect. When the wash cycle finishes, you fish the clothes out one by one, heavy and dripping, and feed them through the wringer. This is the part that demands care. You guide each piece between the two rollers, watching as they grip the fabric and squeeze, water streaming out in a steady flow back into the tub. The wringer is powerful, unforgiving, and more than one housewife has caught her fingers between those rollers and learned a painful lesson. You work methodically, wringing out shirts and sheets and towels, each one emerging flattened and damp but no longer soaking. They fall into a basket on the other side, ready for rinsing. The tub is drained, refilled with clean water, and the clothes go back in for a rinse cycle. Another round of agitation, another pass through the wringer. The process repeats for the colours, then the delicates, each load requiring the same sequence of washing, wringing, rinsing, wringing again. Your arms grow tired from lifting the heavy wet fabric, from guiding it through the rollers, from the constant bending and reaching. Your back begins to protest, a dull ache settling into your lower spine. But you do not stop. Laundry day does not allow for breaks, for rest, for complaints. The work must be done, and so you do it, load after load, until the baskets are empty and the clothesline is waiting. By late morning the washing is finished. The basement floor is damp from splashes and drips, and you mop it quickly before heading upstairs. Baskets of clean, wrung-out laundry balanced on your hip. The sun is bright outside, the breeze is steady, and the clothesline stretches across the backyard, empty and ready. You step out into the fresh air and the work continues. The backyard is your gallery, and the clothesline is your canvas. You carry the heavy wicker basket out into the sunshine, feeling the grass cool and slightly damp beneath your feet. Each piece is shaken out, smoothed flat, and pinned carefully to the line, wooden clothespins gripped between your teeth as you work. The sheets billow gently in the wind, the towels hang heavy and damp, and by evening, everything will smell like fresh air and sunlight, a scent no dryer will ever replicate. The clothesline is strung between two metal poles, waist high, running the length of the yard in 3 parallel rows. It is sturdy, reliable, and you have hung laundry on it so many times you could do it in your sleep. You set the basket down in the grass, feeling the dampness seep through your slippers, and reach for the first sheet. It is heavy, soaked through despite the wringer's best efforts, and you shake it out with a sharp snap, the fabric cracking in the air like a flag. Water droplets fly off, catching the sunlight, and you drape the sheet over the line, smoothing it flat with both hands, making sure it hangs evenly on both sides. You pull a clothespin from your apron pocket, open it with one hand, and clip it to the line, securing one corner. Another pin for the other corner, 2 more along the middle to keep it from sagging. The breeze catches the sheet immediately, lifting it, making it billow and dance. It is a good drying day, the kind where the wind does half the work, pulling moisture from the fabric, leaving it crisp and fresh. You move to the next sheet, then the next, each one shaken, smoothed, pinned, until the line begins to fill. Towels come next, thick and heavy, their terry cloth pile holding water like a grudge. You shake each one hard, snapping it twice to loosen the fibres, then fold it lengthwise over the line and pin it at both ends. The weight makes the line sag slightly, but it holds. It always holds. Your husband's work shirts require more care. You shake them out, button the top button to help them hold their shape, and drape them over the line by the shoulders, pinning each one at the collar and the hem. They hang like a row of ghosts, sleeves dangling, swaying gently in the breeze. You will iron them later, but hanging them properly now will make that job easier. The children's clothes are smaller, lighter, easier to manage. Dresses and trousers, blouses and shorts, each one shaken and pinned. You work quickly now, your hands moving on autopilot, pins gripped between your lips, fabric snapping in the wind. The rhythm is soothing, repetitive, almost meditative. A neighbour waves from her own backyard, her own laundry line half full. You wave back, a silent acknowledgement of shared labour, shared Mondays, shared lives running parallel just a fence apart. She's hanging diapers, you notice, which means her baby is still small, still needing constant changes. You remember those days, and you do not miss them. The basket empties slowly. Pillowcases, dish towels, undergarments pinned discreetly in the middle of the line where they are, less visible from the street. Your apron, your husband's undershirts, the cloth napkins from yesterday's dinner. Everything clean, everything hung, everything surrendered to the sun and the wind. You step back when the last item is pinned, wiping your hands on your skirt, and survey your work. The clothesline is full now, a bright fluttering display of domesticity. The sheets billow like sails. The towels drip steadily onto the grass below. The shirts turn slowly, sleeves lifting and falling as though waving to passers-by. By this evening, it will all be dry. You will bring it in before dinner, warm from the sun, smelling like nothing except clean. You will fold it, stack it, put it away, and in a few days it will all be dirty again, and the cycle will repeat. But for now, the work is done. The laundry is hung. The sun is warm on your shoulders. You pick up the empty basket and head back toward the house, leaving the clothes to dance in the breeze. The iron is heavy, properly heavy, a wedge of cast metal that heats on the stove and holds its warmth like a grudge. You press your husband's shirts with care, smoothing each collar, each cuff, each button placket, until the fabric lies flat and crisp. Your daughter's dresses are next, then the tablecloths, the pillowcases, the cloth napkins. Ironing is meditative, repetitive, a rhythm of heat and pressure and steam that transforms wrinkled chaos into smooth, wearable order. You carry the iron to the kitchen table, where the ironing board is already set up, its padded surface covered with a cloth that has seen years of use, faintly scorched in places where the iron rested too long. The board creaks slightly as you adjust its height, locking it into place with the metal lever underneath. You have learned the exact position that saves your back from aching, high enough to work comfortably, low enough to apply proper pressure. The iron sits on the stove, heating slowly, its flat metal bottom absorbing heat from the burner beneath. You test it with a dampened finger, a quick touch that sizzles faintly, and nod. Ready. You wrap a folded dish towel around the handle, protecting your hand from the heat, and carry it carefully to the board. Your husband's shirts hang on the back of a chair, 5 of them, white and pale blue, each one worn once and waiting to be restored. You take the first one, spreading it flat across the board, and begin with the collar. You sprinkle it lightly with water from a Coca-Cola bottle fitted with a metal sprinkler cap, the droplets darkening the fabric in small constellation patterns. The iron glides over the damp cotton, steam rising in a soft hiss, and the wrinkles disappear beneath the weight and heat, replaced by a smooth, starched crispness. The collar takes 2 passes, inside and out, before you're satisfied. Then the yoke, the shoulders, each sleeve laid flat and pressed from shoulder to cuff, the fabric pulled taut, so no new creases form. The cuffs require special attention, small and fiddly, each one pressed open first, then folded and pressed again, the buttons carefully avoided so they do not crack under the heat. You flip the shirt, pressing the back panel in long straight strokes, the iron moving steadily from collar to hem. The front panels are last, the button placket pressed carefully, the iron slipping between the buttons, your movements precise and practiced. When you finish, you hang the shirt on a hanger hooked over the door frame, where it will cool and hold its shape. The rhythm continues, shirt after shirt, each one sprinkled, pressed, steamed into submission. Your arm begins to tire from the weight of the iron, from the repetitive lifting and lowering, but you do not stop. The pile of wrinkled shirts shrinks, the row of pressed shirts grows. Your daughter's dresses are easier, lighter fabric, fewer buttons, less structure to maintain. You press them quickly, smoothing the skirts, crisping the bodices, making sure the hems lie flat. The tablecloths are a different challenge, large and unwieldy, requiring you to shift and refold them several times to reach every section. You press them in quarters, working methodically, the linen growing smooth and glossy under the iron's heat. The pillowcases are simple, satisfying, rectangles of fabric that yield easily to pressure. You press them flat, fold them in half, press again, creating neat squares that will stack beautifully in the linen closet. The cloth napkins are last, small and quick, each one pressed and folded into a triangle. By the time you finish, the iron has cooled slightly, and you return it to the stove to heat again before storing it. Your arm aches, your back is stiff. But the pile of pressed laundry sits crisp and perfect, ready to be worn, ready to be used, ready to fulfill its purpose. You run your hand over the top shirt, feeling the smoothness, the warmth still radiating from the fabric. This is invisible work that will be undone the moment these clothes are worn, work that no one will notice unless you fail to do it. But you notice, and that for now is enough. For just 15 minutes you allow yourself to stop. You pour a cup of coffee, still hot from this morning's pot, and sit at the kitchen table with a magazine or the morning paper. The house is quiet, the work is half done, and this small pocket of stillness feels like a gift you have given yourself. You sip slowly, reading about recipes you'll never make and decorating tips you'll never follow. And for a moment you're not a housewife. You're just a woman with a warm cup and a quiet thought. The coffee is strong, slightly bitter from sitting on the stove for hours, but you do not mind. You add a splash of cream from the bottle in the icebox, watching it swirl and lighten the dark liquid into something softer, gentler. No sugar today. You're trying to watch your figure, or at least that is what you told yourself this morning, though by afternoon you will probably abandon that resolution in favour of a cookie from the jar. You settle into the chair, the one at the corner of the table that has become yours by unspoken agreement, and let your shoulders drop for the first time since waking. The magazine sits where you left it yesterday, open to an article about Christmas decorating, which seems absurd in the middle of spring, but the illustrations are cheerful and the text is light, requiring nothing from you except passive attention. You flip through the pages slowly, pausing on a recipe for something called tuna surprise casserole, which looks neither surprising nor appetizing, but you read it anyway, noting the ingredients, the steps, the helpful tip about using crushed potato chips as a topping. You will not make this. You know yourself well enough to know that. But reading about it feels productive, as though you are learning something, improving yourself, even if only theoretically. The newspaper is more interesting, or at least more immediate. You scan the headlines, local news about a new shopping centre being built on the edge of town, national news about politics and foreign affairs that feel distant and abstract. The women's section is tucked near the back, and you turn to it gratefully, reading advice columns and society announcements, births and engagements and anniversary celebrations of people you do not know but can easily imagine. Someone has written to the advice columnist about a husband who will not help with housework, and the columnist's response is gentle but firm, suggesting the wife approach the topic with grace and patience, reminding her that men are simply built differently, that their contributions come in other forms. You sip your coffee and wonder if the columnist has ever scrubbed a floor on her knees or wrung out laundry until her hands cramped. Outside, a dog barks. A car passes slowly down the street. The clock on the wall ticks steadily, each second a gentle reminder that this break has a limit, that the day is still unfolding, that there is more work waiting. But you do not check the time. Not yet. For now, this moment is yours. You turn the page to an advertisement for a new vacuum cleaner, sleek and modern, promising to make housework easier, faster, more efficient. The woman in the illustration is smiling, her hair perfect, her dress spotless, as though vacuuming is the highlight of her day. You almost laugh. Almost. Instead, you take another sip of coffee, savouring the warmth, the bitterness, the brief pause in your endless list of tasks. The kitchen is quiet around you, sunlight streaming through the window above the sink, dust motes floating lazily in the golden beams. It is peaceful in a way that feels rare, precious, something to hold on to before the afternoon sweeps in with its own demands. You close the magazine, fold the newspaper, and drain the last of your coffee. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Long enough to rest, not long enough to lose. Momentum. You carry your cup to the sink, rinse it quickly, and set it in the drying rack. The break is over, but it was good while it lasted. You tie your apron tighter and glance at the clock. Almost 11. Lunch will need to be started soon, and the day continues. Lunch is lighter than breakfast, simpler, but it still requires thought and effort. If the children are home, sandwiches are made, soup is heated, fruit is sliced and arranged on small plates. If you are alone, you might toast a slice of bread, spread it with butter and jam, and eat standing at the counter, too restless or too busy to sit. Either way, lunch is less about nourishment and more about maintaining the rhythm, keeping the day on track, moving forward. Today the children are at school, your husband is at work, and the house belongs to you alone. You could skip lunch entirely, push through until dinner, but your stomach has other ideas. A low rumble that reminds you that bodies require fuel even when the work feels endless. You open the icebox, peering inside at the leftovers neatly arranged on covered plates. There is half a meatloaf from Sunday, a bowl of boiled potatoes, a small container of green beans. All perfectly good, all perfectly boring. You close the door and turn instead to the bread box on the counter. The bread is fresh, baked yesterday. The crust still firm, the inside soft and yielding. You slice off 2 pieces, their edges slightly uneven from your hand cutting, and set them on a plate. The toaster, a small chrome contraption that sits on the counter, receives 1 slice at a time, lowered into its wire cage and watched carefully so it does not burn. While the bread toasts, you retrieve the butter and jam from the icebox, setting them on the counter beside the plate. The butter is cold, difficult to spread, and you leave it out for a moment to soften, knowing that patience now will save you from torn toast later. The first slice pops up, golden brown, and you slide it onto golden, the plate, replacing it with the second slice. The warm bread is buttered immediately, the cold butter melting into the surface, creating little pools of yellow richness. The jam is strawberry, homemade, from last summer's berries, and you spread it generously, thick and sweet, the seeds catching on the knife. You eat standing at the counter, looking out the window over the sink at the backyard beyond. The laundry still hangs on the line, sheets billowing, towels swaying. A bird lands on the fence post, surveys the yard and flies off. The grass needs mowing, you notice, the blades growing tall and uneven. But that is your husband's job, not yours, and you make a mental note to mention it at dinner. The toast is good, simple and satisfying. The butter and jam sweet enough to feel like a small indulgence. You eat slowly, chewing thoughtfully, giving yourself this moment of quiet consumption. There's no one to serve, no one to clean up after, no one watching to see if you eat your crusts or leave them on the plate. You finish the first slice and start on the second, but halfway through you feel satisfied, full enough, and you wrap the remaining half in wax paper and tuck it into the icebox for later. Waste not, want not, as your mother used to say, and the habit is too ingrained to break now. A glass of water is poured from the tap, cold and clear, and you drink it standing there, looking out at the day. The morning's work is behind you. The afternoon's work is ahead. Lunch is the border between them, the brief pause where you refuel and regroup. You rinse your plate, dry it, and put it away. The butter and jam go back into the icebox. The crumbs on the counter are wiped away with a damp cloth. The kitchen returns to order, as though lunch never happened. But your stomach is settled, your energy renewed, and you are ready to continue. The clock shows 11:45. Time to think about the grocery run. The market is a social event as much as a chore, place where neighbours meet, gossip is exchanged, and the week's meals are carefully selected. You carry your list, written in pencil on the back of an envelope, and move through the aisles with purpose. The butcher knows your name, the baker sets aside your favourite loaf, and the checkout girl asks about your children with genuine interest. You pay in cash, the groceries are bagged in paper, and you carry them home in your arms, feeling the weight of responsibility and provision. You change out of your house dress into something more presentable, a skirt and blouse that are clean but not fancy, appropriate for being seen in public but practical enough for carrying groceries. You check your hair in the hallway mirror, smoothing the sides, tucking a loose strand behind your ear, and retrieve your purse from the hook by the door. The list is folded inside your purse, alongside your wallet, a handkerchief, and a tube of lipstick you will apply before entering the store. The list is short. Today, milk, eggs, bread, if the one you baked runs out, ground beef for tomorrow's dinner, canned tomatoes, a head of lettuce, and whatever fruit looks good. You've budgeted $15 for the week, and you will not go over, no matter how tempting the displays. The walk to the market is pleasant. 6 blocks down, tree-lined sidewalks where other women are also heading to run errands, their pocketbooks swinging from their arms, their shoes clicking against the pavement. You nod to Mrs. Henderson from 2 streets over, exchange a quick "Good morning" with Mrs. Palmer, who is sweeping her front steps. The market sits on the corner of Main and 3rd, a brick building with large plate glass windows displaying this week's specials on hand-lettered signs. Bell peppers, 3 for a quarter, pork chops, 49 cents a pound, coffee on sale, a rare luxury you consider briefly before deciding against it. Inside, the air is cooler, the smell a mix of fresh produce, raw meat, and the faint sweetness of baked goods. You retrieve a cart, its wheels squeaking slightly, and begin your route through the familiar aisles. Produce first, where you select a head of lettuce, firm and green, shaking off the excess water from the misting system. Tomatoes are examined and rejected, too soft, not ripe enough, bruised on one side. You settle on a bunch of carrots instead, their tops still attached, dirt clinging to the roots. The butcher counter is next, where Mr. Callahan stands in his white apron, sharpening a knife against a steel rod. He looks up and smiles. "Afternoon, Mrs. Davies. What can I get for you today?" "2 pounds of ground beef, please," you say, and he nods, reaching into the display case and pulling out a portion, wrapping it in white paper, tying it with string. He writes the price on the package in grease pencil and hands it to you with a wink. "That'll make a fine meatloaf." You thank him and move on, selecting a carton of eggs from the dairy case, checking each, one to make sure none are cracked. The milk is fresh, the bottle's cold and sweating, and you take 2, knowing the children will go through them quickly. Canned goods are next, and you select 3 cans of tomatoes, checking the prices, comparing brands, choosing the store label because it is 10 cents cheaper and tastes just the same. A box of elbow macaroni goes into the cart along with a tin of tuna fish for lunches. At the bakery counter, Mrs. Ito has set aside a loaf of rye bread for you, just as she does every week. She wraps it in paper and slides it across the counter with a smile. "How are those children of yours?" "Growing like weeds," you reply, and she laughs, a warm, genuine sound. At the checkout, the girl tallies your items on a pad of paper, adding the figures in her head, her lips moving slightly as she calculates. "That'll be $12.38, she announces, and you count out the bills and coins, handing them over, receiving your change. The groceries are packed into 2 paper bags and you tuck one under each arm, balancing the weight carefully. The walk home is slower, more deliberate, the bags heavy against your sides. But you manage, as you always do, one foot in front of the other, the sidewalk familiar beneath your shoes. By the time you reach your front door, your arms are tired, your shoulders aching, but the satisfaction of a completed errand settles warm in your chest. You are providing, and that is what matters. The kitchen becomes a puzzle of placement and order. Canned goods are stacked by type, labels facing forward. Flour and sugar are transferred into metal canisters. Fresh vegetables are washed and stored in the icebox, arranged to maximize space and minimize waste. Everything has its place, and putting it there is part of the ritual, a quiet act of control in a world that often feels beyond your grasp. You set the grocery bags on the counter, the paper slightly damp from the condensation of the milk, bottles, and begin unpacking methodically. The perishables come out first, the items that cannot wait, that must be refrigerated immediately to stay fresh. The milk bottles go into the icebox, standing upright on the top shelf where they are easy to reach. The eggs are transferred from their carton into the wire egg holder, each one settled carefully into its small wire cradle. The ground beef, wrapped in its white paper, goes onto a plate on the lower shelf, where it will stay cold until tomorrow when you cook it. The lettuce is rinsed under the tap, cold water streaming over the leaves, washing away dirt and grit, and then shaken dry over the sink before being wrapped in a damp dish towel and placed in the crisper drawer. The carrots receive the same treatment, scrubbed clean, their greens trimmed off and discarded, the roots tucked beside the lettuce. The bread goes into the bread box on the counter, joining the loaf you baked, both wrapped to stay fresh. You make a mental note that you will not need to bake again until the weekend. Now, the pantry. You open the narrow door beside the stove and survey the shelves, already organised but always in need of maintenance. The canned tomatoes go on the second shelf, lined up beside the other canned vegetables, labels turned forward so you can see at a glance what you have. You practice rotation, oldest cans to the front, newest to the back, ensuring nothing sits too long and goes to waste. The tuna fish joins the other canned meats on the top shelf, beside the salmon and the spam and the potted ham you bought on sale and have not yet used. The macaroni goes with the other pastas, boxes stacked neatly, their contents labelled in your handwriting on the top flaps. The flour and sugar require more effort. You retrieve the metal canisters from the counter, large and round, with tight-fitting lids that keep out moisture and pests. The flour canister is nearly empty, just a thin layer of white dust at the bottom, and you open the new 5-pound bag carefully, cutting the top with scissors and pouring the contents in slowly to avoid a cloud of flour coating the kitchen. The sugar canister is next, its contents poured from the paper sack, granules cascading in a sweet white stream. You seal both canisters tightly, wipe away any spills and return them to their spots on the counter. The pantry is a source of quiet pride, each shelf organised, each item accounted for, a physical manifestation of your planning and foresight. You know exactly what you have, what you need, what meals you can make from the ingredients stocked here. It is a kind of security, a buffer against uncertainty, a testament to your ability to manage and provide. You step back, close the pantry door and survey the kitchen. The grocery bags are folded and tucked into the drawer where you save them for lining the trash bin. The counters are clear. Everything is in its place. You wipe your hands on your apron, satisfied. The pantry is ready. The icebox is stocked. The household can eat for another week, and you have made it so. The oven is on, the kitchen is warm, and the smell of butter and sugar fills the air like an edible hug. You're making a cake, or cookies, or a pie, something sweet to serve after dinner or to bring to a neighbour or simply to have on hand because a home without baked goods feels incomplete. Your hands are dusted with flour, the recipe is memorised, and the rhythm of creaming butter and folding batter is as familiar as breathing. You have decided on cookies today, oatmeal raisin, the kind your husband likes and the children tolerate. The recipe lives in your head. No need to consult the stained index card tucked into the recipe box. You have made these cookies 100 times, maybe more, and your hands know the proportions without measuring. The butter sits on the counter, softened to room temperature, and you scoop it into the large ceramic mixing bowl, adding sugar and beginning the process of creaming them together. You use a wooden spoon, the handle worn smooth from years of stirring, and work the butter and sugar with firm rhythmic strokes, scraping down the sides of the bowl periodically until the mixture is light and fluffy, pale yellow and sweet-smelling. Eggs next, 2 of them, cracked one at a time against the rim of the bowl, shells discarded, yolks and whites sliding into the butter mixture. You beat them in thoroughly, the batter becoming richer, smoother, taking on a glossy sheen. The dry ingredients wait in a smaller bowl. Flour, baking soda, salt, cinnamon, all whisked together to distribute evenly. You add them gradually to the wet mixture, stirring gently, careful not to overmix, watching as the dough comes together, thick and slightly sticky. The oats go in next, stirred until they are fully incorporated, followed by the raisins, plump and sweet, dotting the dough like small dark jewels. The oven has been heating while you worked, and you test it now with your hand, holding your palm near the open door, feeling the blast of heat. Hot enough. You do not have a thermometer, do not need one. Experience has taught you what 350 degrees feels like. You grease 2 baking sheets with butter, rubbing it across the metal surface with a piece of wax paper, and begin dropping spoonfuls of dough onto the sheets, spacing them evenly, leaving room for them to spread. Each cookie is roughly the same size, shaped with the practiced eye of someone who has done this too many times to count. The first sheet goes into the oven, and you set the timer in your head. 12 minutes, maybe 13, depending on how soft or crisp you want them. You can tell by smell when they're close, the scent of toasting oats and caramelizing sugar, and you will check them by sight, looking for golden edges and soft centers. While the first batch bakes, you prepare the second sheet, dropping dough, spacing evenly, using up the last of the batter. The kitchen grows warmer, the oven radiating heat, and you crack the window above the sink to let in a breeze. The timer in your head goes off, and you pull the first sheet from the oven, setting it on the stovetop to cool. The cookies are perfect, golden brown, fragrant, their edges crisp, their centers still soft. You slide the second sheet in and reset your internal clock. While the second batch bakes, you transfer the first cookies to a wire cooling rack, using a spatula to lift them gently, careful not to break them while they're still warm and fragile. They firm up as they cool, the smell intensifying, filling the kitchen with sweetness. The second batch comes out just as perfect as the first, and you repeat the process, transferring them to the rack, turning off the oven, closing the door. 24 cookies, cooling on the rack, ready to be stored in the ceramic cookie jar or wrapped in wax paper for your husband's lunch pail. You sample one, still warm, the oats chewy, the raisins sweet, the whole thing satisfying in a way that only homemade cookies can be. The kitchen is a mess now, bowls and spoons and flour dusted across the counter, but the cookies are done, and that is what matters. You will clean up in a moment, but first, one more cookie, just to make sure they turned out right. Dinner is the day's main event, the meal that must be ready when your husband walks through the door, the meal that will be judged, praised, or silently critiqued depending on how well you've executed it. You peel potatoes, trim roast, chop vegetables, season everything with care. The stove is your command center, pots bubbling, pans sizzling, timers ticking in your head because the oven timer is broken and you have learned to count minutes like heartbeats. You begin at 4 o'clock, giving yourself 2 full hours to prepare, cook, and plate a meal that will look effortless when it reaches the table at 6. Tonight is pot roast, a Sunday-worthy meal delivered on a Wednesday because the ground beef you bought will keep until tomorrow and the roast in the icebox has been waiting long enough. The roast comes out first, a 3-pound cut of beef marbled with fat cold and firm from refrigeration. You set it on the cutting board and trim away the excess fat, leaving just enough to keep it moist during cooking. Salt and pepper are rubbed generously into the surface, coating every side, and then you dredge it lightly in flour, a thin coating that will brown beautifully and thicken the gravy later. The Dutch oven goes on the stove, heavy and reliable, and you add a tablespoon of lard, letting it melt and shimmer before placing the roast inside. It sizzles immediately, the sound sharp and satisfying, and you sear each side until it is deep brown, caramelized, fragrant. The meat is removed and set aside while you build the base of the dish. Onions are chopped, their layers releasing sharp, eye-watering fumes, and added to the pot along with minced garlic. They soften and sweeten in the residual fat, turning translucent, and you stir them constantly to prevent burning. A cup of beef broth is poured in, deglazing the pot, scraping up the browned bits stuck to the bottom, and then the roast is returned, nestled into the liquid. Carrots and potatoes are peeled and chopped into large chunks, added around the roast, submerged partially in the broth. A bay leaf is tucked in, a sprig of thyme, and the lid is placed on top. The whole thing goes into the oven, where it will braise slowly for the next 90 minutes, the meat tenderizing, the vegetables absorbing flavour, the broth reducing into something rich and savoury. While the roast cooks, you prepare the side dishes. Green beans from a jar are drained and rinsed, then set in a pot with a little butter and a pinch of salt, ready to be warmed just before serving. Biscuits are mixed quickly, flour and baking powder and buttermilk kneaded just enough to hold together, cut into rounds, and placed on a baking sheet to wait their turn in the oven. The table is set early, plates and silverware arranged, glasses filled with water, napkins folded and placed just so. You check the roast periodically, opening the oven door to peek inside, basting the meat with the accumulated juices, ensuring nothing is drying out or burning. At 5:30 the biscuits go in, 12 minutes at high heat, and you watch them rise and brown, their tops turning golden, their scent mingling with the roast's savoury richness. The green beans are warmed on the stovetop, stirred gently, seasoned to taste. At 10 minutes to 6, the roast comes out. The meat fork tender, nearly falling apart, the vegetables soft and flavourful. You transfer everything to a serving platter, arranging it carefully, artfully, and pour the braising liquid into a saucepan, whisking in a little flour to thicken it into gravy. The biscuits are placed in a cloth-lined basket. The green beans are transferred to a serving bowl. The gravy is poured into a small pitcher. Everything is ready. The kitchen smells like comfort, like home, like success. You hear the front door open, your husband's footsteps in the hall, and you untie your apron, smooth your hair, and take a breath. Dinner is served. The dining table is dressed for the occasion, cloth napkins folded beside each plate, silverware arranged in proper order, water glasses filled and waiting. You smooth the tablecloth one last time, adjust the centerpiece, light a candle if the occasion feels special. This is not just dinner, it is presentation, proof that you have spent the day caring for your family, and the table is your stage. The tablecloth is linen, cream-coloured, ironed this morning until every wrinkle submitted to your will. It drapes evenly over the table, the edges hanging precisely the same length on all sides, a detail no one will notice but you. You smooth it with both hands, feeling the crisp texture, ensuring no creases have formed since you laid it down an hour ago. The plates are next, your good china, white with a delicate blue pattern around the rim, reserved for family dinners and special occasions. Tonight is neither, but you use them anyway, because why own beautiful things if you never use them? Each plate is placed exactly 1 inch from the edge of the table, centered in front of each chair. Silverware is arranged with precision. Forks to the left, knife and spoon to the right, each piece aligned parallel to the others, the handles exactly 1 inch from the table's edge. You have read enough women's magazines to know the rules, even if you sometimes think they're silly. Still, there is satisfaction in doing things properly, in knowing that if a guest were to arrive unexpectedly, your table would pass inspection. The water glasses are filled from the pitcher you keep in the icebox, cold and clear, each one filled 3/4 full. Too much and someone will spill. Too little and you will have to refill them mid-meal. 3/4 is the balance point, the result of years of trial and error. Cloth napkins, folded into simple rectangles, are placed to the left of each fork. You considered folding them into triangles or the fancy fan shape you saw in a magazine, but decided simplicity was better. This is a family dinner, not a banquet. The centerpiece is a low arrangement of flowers from the garden, nothing fancy, just a few roses and some greenery arranged in a small glass vase. They add colour without blocking sightlines across the table, allowing conversation to flow freely. You adjust the vase slightly, moving it a 1/2 inch to the left, then back to the right, then deciding it was fine where it was originally. The candles sit in brass holders on either side of the flowers, tall white tapers that you light with a match, watching the flames catch and steady. The soft glow they cast makes everything look warmer, softer, more intentional. Candlelight turns an ordinary Wednesday dinner into something that feels special, even sacred. You step back and survey your work, moving around the table, checking each place setting from different angles. Everything is symmetrical, balanced, harmonious. The table looks ready to receive, ready to nourish, ready to gather the family together at the end of a long day. This is your offering, your silent speech, your way of saying I care without using words. The table does not announce itself, does not demand attention, but its careful preparation speaks volumes to anyone paying attention. You adjust one last fork, straighten one last napkin, and nod. The stage is set. The food is ready. Now all that remains is for the actors to arrive. The meal is served, plates are filled, and you take your seat last after everyone else has been attended to. Conversation flows around you, light and familiar, and you smile and nod and occasionally contribute, though mostly you are watching, making sure everyone has enough, that nothing is missing, that the meal is a success. When it is over, you rise first, clearing plates, scraping leftovers, resetting the kitchen for the next round of work. Your husband sits at the head of the table, your children on either side, and you move around them with practiced efficiency, serving the pot roast first, a thick slice for your husband, smaller portions for the children. The vegetables are spooned onto each plate, carrots and potatoes glistening with butter and gravy. The biscuits are passed in their basket, steam still rising from their split centres. You serve yourself last, a smaller portion, always smaller, and take your seat at the foot of the table. The candles flicker gently between you and your husband, casting dancing shadows on the wall. How was your day, you ask, the same question you ask every evening, and your husband answers with a non-committal, fine, as he always does, his tension already on his plate, his fork cutting into the roast, the children chatter more freely, your daughter telling a story about something that happened at recess, your son interrupting to correct a detail she got wrong. You listen, you smile, you ask follow-up questions that keep the conversation moving, even as part of your attention remains on the meal itself, monitoring whether the roast is tender enough, whether the gravy needs more salt, whether anyone needs seconds. Your husband reaches for another biscuit, and you pass the butter without being asked. Your son's water glass is nearly empty, and you refill it from the pitcher on the sideboard. Your daughter has pushed her carrots to the side of her plate, and you give her a look, gentle but firm, and she sighs and eats one. The meal progresses, forks scraping against plates, conversation rising and falling, the candles burning slowly down. You eat your own food in small bites between servings, between refilling glasses, between wiping your son's chin with your napkin. When the plates begin to empty, when the conversation begins to slow, you rise and begin clearing. Your husband leans back in his chair, satisfied, and your children ask to be excused. You grant permission with a nod, and they scatter, leaving you alone with the remains of the meal. The plates are stacked carefully, scraped over the trash bin in the kitchen, the uneaten food falling away. There is not much waste, which pleases you. The roast was the right size, the vegetables the right amount. You've learned over the years to gauge appetites, to cook exactly what will be eaten, no more, no less. The serving dishes are carried to the counter, the platter washed and dried immediately before the gravy can set into a stubborn film. The leftover roast is wrapped in wax paper and placed in the icebox, tomorrow's lunch already planned. The remaining biscuits go into a covered tin, still soft, still good. The tablecloth is brushed clean of crumbs, the napkins collected and added to the laundry pile. The centrepiece remains, the candles are extinguished, the table partially reset for breakfast, a head start on tomorrow. The kitchen fills with dirty dishes, and you roll up your sleeves, knowing the night's work is not yet finished. But the meal was a success. Your family was fed, the day's main mission accomplished, and that, in the end, is all that matters. The sink fills again, this time with the weight of an entire meal. Serving bowls, dinner plates, pots crusted with gravy, pans slick with grease. You wash each one by hand, your fingers pruning in the hot soapy water, your back aching from standing. The kitchen must be returned to its pristine morning state before you can rest, and so you scrub, rinse, dry, and put away. Moving through the motions with the quiet determination of someone who knows this will all begin again tomorrow. The water runs hot, almost too hot, and you add soap, watching the bubbles rise and foam. The dinner dishes are a different beast than the breakfast dishes, heavier, greasier, requiring more effort and more time. You begin with the glasses, the easiest, washing and rinsing them first, setting them in the drying rack where they catch the overhead light and gleam. The silverware is next, each fork and knife and spoon scrubbed individually, the tines and blades cleaned of any lingering food. You pay special attention to the serving spoons, their bowls deep and prone to collecting residue, and rinse them thoroughly before standing them in the rack to dry. The dinner plates are stacked beside the sink, each one smeared with gravy and grease, and you take them one by one, scrubbing in circular motions, the dishcloth working hard to lift the film of fat. The water grows murky quickly, and you drain the sink halfway through, refilling it with fresh hot water and more soap. The serving dishes are the real challenge. The platter that held the roast is large and heavy, its surface glazed with congealed drippings that resist your first attempts to clean them. You let it soak for a moment while you tackle the vegetable bowl, easier, lighter, and then return to the platter with renewed determination, scrubbing until the glaze yields and the ceramic shines clean. The pots are last, and they are the worst. The Dutch oven, crusted with browned bits and thickened gravy, requires soaking and scrubbing and patience. You fill it with hot water and let it sit while you wash the smaller pots, the one that held the green beans, the saucepan that made the gravy, each one cleaned and rinsed and set to dry. Then you return to the Dutch oven, armed with a stiff brush and determination. The crust loosens slowly, reluctantly, and you scrub in firm strokes, working your way around the interior until every bit is gone and the enamel is clean. You rinse it thoroughly, dry it with a towel, and set it on the stove to air dry completely before putting it away. The counters are wiped down, the stove scrubbed clean of splatters and drips, the floor swept of crumbs and tracked-in dirt. The dish towels are hung to dry, the dishcloth rinsed and wrung out and draped over the faucet. You drain the sink one final time, watching the grey water swirl away, and wipe the basin clean with a rag. The kitchen, chaotic an hour ago, is orderly again, reset, ready for tomorrow's cycle to begin. Your hands are red and wrinkled, your back is stiff, and your feet ache from standing. But the work is done, and the satisfaction of that is real, tangible, something you can see and feel. You dry your hands on your apron, untie it, and hang it on its hook by the door. The kitchen is yours again, quiet and clean. And tomorrow, you will fill it with life once more. The dining table becomes a study hall, schoolbooks spread open, pencils scratching against paper. You sit beside your children, guiding them through arithmetic problems and spelling words, your patience tested and stretched, but never quite breaking. You explain things twice, sometimes 3 times, and when they finally understand, you feel a quiet pride that no one will ever acknowledge or applaud. Your daughter's arithmetic book lies open to a page of long division problems, numbers marching down the page in neat rows, each one waiting to be solved. She chews the end of her pencil, her brow furrowed in concentration, and you can see the exact moment where her confidence falters and frustration begins to creep in. You lean closer, pointing to the first problem with your finger. "Let's try this one together," you say gently, and she nods, reluctant but willing. You walk her through it step by step, the process of dividing, multiplying, subtracting, bringing down the next number. Your voice is calm, patient, even though you have explained the same concept yesterday and the day before. Math does not come easily to her, and you remember your own struggles with numbers at her age, the way they seem to shift and rearrange themselves just when you thought you understood. She works through the problem slowly, hesitating before each step, glancing at you for confirmation. You nod when she is right, gently correct when she is wrong, guiding her back on track without making her feel foolish. When she reaches the answer, she looks up at you with cautious hope. "Is that right?" You check her work, following her pencil marks down the page, and smile. "That's exactly right. See? You can do this." She exhales, a small sound of relief, and turns to the next problem with slightly more confidence. Your son sits across from you, his spelling list in front of him, 20 words he's meant to memorize by Friday. He's a better speller than his sister is at math, but his attention wanders easily, and you have to redirect him every few minutes, calling him back from whatever imaginary world he's drifted into. "Spell necessary," you say, and he squints at the ceiling, lips moving silently as he works through the letters in his mind. NEC, he pauses, uncertain. ESSARY? Close, you say. There's only one S in the middle. Try again. He frowns, concentrating harder this time, and gets it right on the second attempt. You make him write it 3 times, muscle memory reinforcing what his mind struggles to hold. The evening light fades outside, the kitchen growing dimmer, and you reach over to turn on the lamp beside the table. The warm glow pools across the books and papers, creating a small circle of focus in the darkening room. Your daughter finishes her arithmetic and moves on to reading comprehension, a short passage about a family visiting a farm, followed by questions she must answer in complete sentences. You sit beside her, listening as she reads aloud, her voice halting over unfamiliar words. You help her sound them out, break them into syllables, and watch as understanding dawns on her face. Your son practices his spelling words again, this time writing each one in a sentence, his handwriting large and slightly crooked sprawling across the lined paper. You check his work, circling the misspellings gently in pencil, and he groans but corrects them without complaint. The homework takes an hour, maybe longer, each child working at their own pace, each requiring different kinds of help. Your daughter needs encouragement, reassurance that she is capable even when the work feels hard. Your son needs structure, boundaries, someone to keep him focused and on task. You provide both, shifting between them, your attention divided but never diluted. This is teaching without a classroom, mothering without recognition, labour that will never appear on a report card or earn a gold star. But when your daughter solves the last division problem on her own, without your help, her face lighting up with pride, you feel it. And when your son spells all 20 words correctly on his practice test, you feel that too. They pack their books into their satchels, homework complete, and thank you in the casual, distracted way children do, already thinking about the next thing. You gather the pencils, straighten the papers, and turn off the lamp. The work is invisible, uncounted, unpaid, but it matters, and you know it does. The mending basket is always full, a constant supply of torn hems, missing buttons, socks that need darning. You sit in your chair, needle and thread in hand, and repair each piece with care. This is thrifty work, necessary work, the kind of quiet labour that keeps a household running on a single income. Your hands move automatically, stitching and knotting, and the rhythm is soothing in a way that nothing else quite is. The basket sits beside your chair in the living room, wicker sides bulging with the week's accumulation of small disasters. Your husband's shirt with a missing button, your daughter's dress with a torn hem, your son's trousers with a split seam along the inseam, a pair of socks, both with holes worn through the heels waiting to be darned. You pull the shirt out first, holding it up to the light from the floor lamp beside you. The button is gone completely, lost somewhere between the washing machine and the clothesline, and you search through your button tin for a replacement. The tin is an old cookie container, filled with buttons of every size and colour, salvaged from worn-out clothes over the years, each one waiting for a second life. You find one that matches closely enough, white and round, 4 holes, and thread your needle with white thread, knotting the end securely. Your fingers work the button into place, stitching through the fabric and the holes in a crisscross pattern, pulling tight, reinforcing it so it will not come loose again. A few extra stitches for security, a final knot on the underside, and the repair is complete. The dress is next. The hem torn where your daughter caught it on a fence climbing over something she should not have been climbing over in the first place. You turn the fabric inside out, examining the damage, and decide it needs to be rehemmed entirely, not just patched. You unpick the old stitches with a seam ripper, carefully, patiently, removing the thread without damaging the fabric. Then you fold the hem up, measuring it against the other side to ensure it is even, and pin it in place with straight pins held between your lips. The needle slides through the fabric in small, even stitches, invisible from the outside, a slip stitch that holds firm but does not show. Your mother taught you this stitch, and her mother taught her, a chain of knowledge passed down through generations of women who mended because buying new was not an option. The work is meditative, repetitive, your hands moving in the same motions over and over. Stitch, pull, stitch, pull. The thread whispers through the fabric, a soft sound that blends with the ticking of the clock on the mantel and the distant murmur of the radio your husband is listening to in the next room. The trousers require a different approach. The seams split along a stress, point from too much play, too much running and climbing and boyhood. You turn them inside out and restitch the seam, backstitching at both ends to reinforce it, making it stronger than it was before. When you turn them right side out again, the repair is nearly invisible, just a slight puckering that will disappear after the next wash. The socks are last, and darning socks is its own particular skill, weaving thread back and forth across the hole, creating a patch of interlocking threads that mimics the original knit. You slip the sock over a wooden darning egg, stretching the hole taut, and thread your needle with yarn that matches as closely as possible. The work is slow, careful, each pass of the needle creating a new thread in the grid, building the patch from nothing. When you finish, you hold the sock up to the light, examining your work. It is not perfect, but it is solid, functional, good for another few months of wear. You fold each mended item and place it in a separate basket, ready to be returned to its owner's drawer or closet. The mending basket is lighter now, though never empty. There will always be more buttons, more hems, more holes. But for tonight, you have done what you can. You set the needle and thread aside, flex your fingers to work out the stiffness, and allow yourself a moment of rest before the next task calls. The children are in bed, the house is finally quiet, and you sit beside your husband in the living room, each of you occupying your own small world. He reads the paper or listens to the radio. You fold laundry or flip through a magazine, and the silence between you is comfortable, familiar, a shared understanding that this is rest, even if it does not quite feel restful. The living room is dim, lit only by the floor lamp beside your husband's chair, and the soft glow from the radio dial across the room. The radio plays quietly, a news program giving way to a music show, big band music that sounds tinny and distant through the small speaker. Your husband sits in his chair, the one that has moulded itself to his shape over the years, the armrests worn smooth from his hands, the cushion permanently indented. He holds the evening paper, sections folded and refolded, his reading glasses perched on his nose. He turns the pages slowly, methodically, pausing occasionally to read something more carefully before moving on. You sit on the sofa, a basket of clean, folded laundry beside you, and work through it piece by piece. Towels are refolded into precise rectangles. Dish towels are smoothed flat and stacked. Your husband's undershirts are folded with the same care you give everything else, though no one will see them but him. The silence between you is not empty. It is full of years, of shared history, of a comfort that does not require words. You've been married long enough that conversation is optional, presence enough. Occasionally, he shares something from the paper. Says they're widening the highway, he remarks, not really asking for a response, just offering the information into the space between you. You reply, folding a pillowcase. That'll help with the traffic. He nods, returns to his reading. The conversation ends as easily as it began. You reach for a magazine from the stack on the side table, something light, something that requires nothing from you. An article about new kitchen gadgets, a story about a movie star's home, advertisements for appliances you will never buy. You flip through it slowly, your hands still moving automatically, folding even as your eyes scan the pages. The radio shifts to music, a smooth crooner singing about love and moonlight and dancing close. Your husband hums along absently, not quite on key, and you smile without looking up. Outside, the neighbourhood settles into night. A dog barks once and falls silent. A car passes slowly down the street, its headlights sweeping briefly across your front window. The house creaks softly, the sounds of wood and pipes adjusting to the cooling evening air. This is your time together, such as it is. Not romantic, not dramatic, just two people sharing space at the end of a long day. He does not ask about your day because he assumes it was like every other day. You do not ask about his because the answer is always the same. Fine. But there is peace in this, in the lack of demand, in the absence of expectation. You do not have to perform for him right now. You do not have to be cheerful or engaging or interesting. You can simply exist beside him, folding laundry, turning magazine pages, listening to the radio play songs you've heard 100 times before. He folds his paper eventually, sets it aside, and leans back in his chair, eyes closed. You think he might be dozing, but then he speaks. Good dinner tonight. You glance up, surprised by the compliment, small as it is. Thank you. He nods, eyes still closed, and says nothing more. You finish the last of the laundry, stacking the folded, piles neatly in the basket, and set the magazine aside. The music on the radio continues, soft and undemanding. You sit back against the sofa cushions, allowing yourself this moment of stillness, this brief respite before you rise and begin preparing for tomorrow. The quiet stretches between you, comfortable and known, and for now it is enough. You move through the house one last time, checking locks, turning off lights, setting out tomorrow's clothes. You prepare the coffee pot for the morning, set the table for breakfast, lay out ingredients for the next day's meals. This is the bridge between today and tomorrow, the quiet act of preparation that ensures the day will begin smoothly, even if you're too tired to care. The children's rooms are checked first, a habit you cannot break even now that they're old enough to put themselves to bed. You crack open your daughter's door, peering into the darkness, listening for the steady rhythm of her breathing. She's asleep, curled on her side, the stuffed bear tucked under her arm. You adjust the blanket that has slipped down, tucking it gently around her shoulders, and pull the door almost closed, leaving it open just enough to hear her if she calls. Your son's room is next, and you find him sprawled across the bed in a position that looks wildly uncomfortable, but apparently works for him. One leg hangs off the edge, one arm flung over his head, his mouth slightly open. You straighten his covers too, resisting the urge to shift him into a more reasonable position, knowing he will just sprawl out again the moment you leave. Downstairs, you move from room to room, turning off lamps, checking the locks on the front and back doors. The windows are secured, the curtains drawn. The house is sealed against the night, safe and contained. In the kitchen, you begin your preparations for tomorrow. The coffee pot is disassembled and rinsed, then reassembled and filled with water, the grounds measured and waiting in the basket, ready to be set on the stove the moment you wake. It is one less thing to do in the pre-dawn darkness, one small gift to your future self. The breakfast table is partially set, plates stacked on the sideboard, silverware laid out, glasses positioned and ready to be filled with juice. The box of cereal is placed on the counter, the milk bottle positioned in the icebox where it is easy to reach. You pull ingredients for tomorrow's lunch from the pantry and the icebox, setting them on the counter. Bread for sandwiches, leftover pot roast for your husband's lunch pail, an apple for each child's lunchbox. The lunchboxes themselves are washed and dried, waiting on the counter to be packed in the morning. Dinner tomorrow will be the ground beef you bought today, formed into a meatloaf, and you pull the mixing bowl from the cupboard and set it on the counter beside the meat, a visual reminder of the task waiting for you in the afternoon. Your own clothes for tomorrow are selected and laid out, on the chair in your bedroom, a fresh house dress, stockings, a clean apron. Your husband's work clothes are already pressed and hanging in the closet, shirt and trousers ready to be worn. You move through these preparations with mechanical efficiency, your body going through motions it has performed 1,000 times, your mind already half asleep. Each small task is a brick in the foundation of tomorrow, ensuring that when the alarm rings and the day begins again, you will not be starting from chaos. The house is ready now, poised on the edge of tomorrow, waiting. You take one last look around the kitchen, making sure you've forgotten nothing, and turn off the overhead light, leaving only the small lamp on the counter burning, a soft glow to guide you if you need to come downstairs in the night. You climb the stairs slowly, your hand on the banister, your feet heavy with the weight of the day. The bedroom is dark and quiet, your husband already asleep, his breathing deep and even. You change into your nightgown, wash your face at the basin, brush your teeth, and slip into bed beside him. The sheets are cool and smooth, welcoming. Tomorrow is prepared for. Tonight is finished. You close your eyes and let the day fall away. You slip into bed, your body heavy with exhaustion, your mind still ticking through tomorrow's tasks. The alarm will ring in a few short hours, and the whole rhythm will begin again. Breakfast and laundry and dinner and dishes, an endless loop of service and care. But for now, in this quiet darkness, you close your eyes and let sleep come, knowing that tomorrow you will rise and do it all again, because this is the life you have chosen, or the life that has chosen you, and either way, it is yours. The pillow is soft beneath your head, the blankets pulled up to your chin, the familiar weight of them comforting against the night's chill. Beside you, your husband sleeps soundly, his presence a warm, solid fact, reassuring in its constancy. You try to empty your mind to let the day's worries drain away, but your thoughts continue their quiet march. Did you remember to close the icebox completely? Is there enough bread for tomorrow's sandwiches? Should you have added baking powder to the grocery list? The questions drift through your consciousness like leaves on a slow stream, not urgent, just present. The alarm clock sits on the nightstand, its hands glowing faintly in the darkness. 5 hours until it rings. 5 hours to rest, to restore, to prepare yourself to do this all over again. It does not feel like enough, but it never does. Sleep is a luxury measured in stolen minutes, a commodity always in short supply. You shift slightly, finding a more comfortable position, and feel your muscles begin to relax, the tension of the day slowly releasing its grip. Your feet ache from standing. Your hands are dry and rough from washing. Your back holds a dull throb that you have learned to ignore. But there is satisfaction too, buried beneath the exhaustion. The house is clean. The children are fed and tucked safely in bed. Your husband's shirts are pressed and waiting. Tomorrow's meals are planned. You have done what needed to be done, what always needs to be done, and you have done it well. This is your work, invisible and endless, uncounted and unpaid. No one will write a report about the meals you cooked or the floors you scrubbed. No one will calculate the hours you spent mending and ironing and organizing. No one will measure the value of your patience, your planning, your constant tending of the small details that make a household run. But you know the worth of what you do, even if the world does not. You think of your mother, who did this same work before you, who rose at dawn and worked until dark, who taught you these rhythms and routines. You think of your daughter, asleep down the hall, and wonder if she will do this too someday, if she will inherit this life of quiet service, or if her world will offer her something different. The darkness softens around you, your thoughts growing slower, hazier, the edges blurring as sleep begins to pull you under. Tomorrow is coming, inevitable and demanding, but for now, for these few precious hours, you can rest. Your breathing deepens, matching the rhythm of your husband's beside you. The house settles into its nighttime sounds, the creak of cooling wood, the whisper of wind against the windows, the distant hum of the icebox downstairs. You let go. You surrender to sleep. You trust that tomorrow, when the alarm rings and the darkness is still thick outside, you will rise again. You will tie your apron. You will light the stove. You will begin the day's work, because that is what you do. This is the life of a 1950s housewife. This is your life. And tomorrow, you will live it again. Once a week, usually on Friday, you take the bus downtown to shop at the department stores, a trip that feels both practical and indulgent. You dress more carefully for this outing, wearing your good shoes and carrying your best handbag, because downtown is where you might be seen by people who matter. The bus ride takes 20 minutes, and you spend it watching the neighbourhood slide past the window, modest homes giving way to storefronts and eventually to the tall buildings that mark the city centre. The bus stops at the corner of 5th and Main, right in front of Woolworths, and you step down onto the sidewalk, joining the flow of women moving purposefully from store to store. The sidewalks are crowded on Fridays, filled with housewives like yourself, secretaries on their lunch breaks, and the occasional businessman striding past with his briefcase and his hurried expression. Your first stop is always the fabric store 3 blocks down, where bolts of cloth line the walls in rainbows of colour and pattern. You're not here to buy today, just to look, to run your fingers over the cottons and the linens, to imagine what you might make if money were no object and time were plentiful. The clerk knows you by sight now and greets you with a smile that is knowing but not unkind. She understands the difference between looking and buying. You examine a bolt of floral print, soft pink roses on a cream background, and calculate quickly in your head how many yards you would need for a dress, how much it would cost. Too much. You move on to the remnant bin, where odd lengths are sold at discount, and find a piece of blue gingham large enough for an apron, maybe 2. This you can afford. You carry it to the counter, and the clerk measures and cuts and wraps it in brown paper, tying it with string. Next is the dime store, where you can buy thread, buttons, elastic, and all the small necessities that keep a household running. You move through the narrow aisles, picking up a card of white buttons, a spool of black thread, a package of bobby pins for your daughter. The store smells like popcorn and candy and floor wax, a combination that is oddly comforting. At the cosmetics counter, you pause to test a lipstick, a shade called Coral Dream, rolling it across the back of your hand and examining the colour in the light. It is pretty, cheerful, but not practical. Your current lipstick still has weeks of life left in it, and frivolous purchases are not in the budget. You replace the tester and move on. The lunch counter at Woolworths is calling to you now, the smell of grilled cheese and coffee drifting out into the store. You climb onto a red vinyl stool and order a tuna salad sandwich and a Coca-Cola, treating yourself to a meal you did not have to prepare or clean up after. The sandwich arrives on a white plate, the tuna mixed with mayonnaise and celery, served with potato chips and a pickle spear. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, watching the other customers come and go. A woman your age sits down 2 stools away, and you exchange polite nods. She orders coffee and pie, and you think briefly about doing the same but decide against it. The sandwich is enough. You finish your lunch, leave a tip for the waitress, and pay your bill at the register. The afternoon is slipping away, and you still need to stop at the shoe repair to pick up your husband's rizzled boots and the pharmacy for aspirin and cold cream. The errands are completed one by one, each small package adding to the collection in your shopping bag. By the time you board the bus for home, your feet ache and your arms are tired from carrying, but there is satisfaction in the weight of the bag, in the knowledge that you have accomplished what you set out to do. The bus carries you back through the city, past the storefronts and the tall buildings, back into your neighbourhood where the houses are small and familiar. You pull the cord to signal your stop, step down onto the sidewalk, and walk the 2 blocks home, your good shoes clicking against the pavement. The downtown trip is over for another week. But the small pleasures it brought, the brief escape from the routine, will sustain you for days. There is something deeply satisfying about baking bread, about taking flour and water and yeast and transforming them through your own hands into something warm and nourishing. You bake bread twice a week, usually on Tuesday and Friday, and the process has become so familiar that you barely need to think about measurements anymore. Your hands know the feel of properly kneaded dough, the way it changes from sticky and rough to smooth and elastic under your palms. You begin in the morning, after breakfast is cleared and the kitchen is yours again. The flour canister is pulled from its place on the counter, the yeast is dissolved in warm water, sugar added to feed it, and you wait for it to foam and bubble, proof that it is alive and ready to work. While the yeast activates, you measure flour into the large ceramic mixing bowl, creating a well in the centre where the liquid will go. Salt is added to the flour, stirred through to distribute evenly. When the yeast is ready, frothy and fragrant, you pour it into the well along with melted butter and more warm water and begin stirring with a wooden spoon, watching as the flour is gradually incorporated, the mixture transforming from a shaggy mess into a rough dough. When the spoon becomes useless, you flour the counter and turn the dough out onto it, scraping the bowl clean with your fingers. The dough is sticky at first, clinging to your hands, to the counter, to everything it touches, but you begin to knead, pushing the dough away with the heels of your hands, folding it back over itself, turning it a quarter turn and repeating. More flour is added gradually, just enough to keep it from sticking, but not so much that the bread becomes heavy and dense. The kneading takes 10 minutes, maybe 15, your arms working steadily, your shoulders beginning to feel the effort. You watch the dough transform, becoming smoother, more elastic, developing a silky texture that feels alive under your hands. When you press a finger into it, the dough springs back slowly, holding the indentation for just a moment before recovering. This is the sign that it is ready. The dough is shaped into a ball and placed in a greased bowl, turned once to coat all sides with oil and covered with a clean dish towel. It goes into the warmest spot in the kitchen, on top of the stove where the pilot light provides gentle heat, and you set it aside to rise. This is the waiting time, the time when the yeast does its invisible work, feeding on the sugars in the dough, producing gas that will make the bread light and airy. You clean the counter while you wait, wash the bowl and the spoon, wipe away the scattered flour. An hour passes, maybe 90 minutes, and when you check the dough, it has doubled in size, puffed up and pressing against the towel. You punch it down, your fists sinking into the soft dough, releasing the gas, with a satisfying exhale, and turn it out onto the floured counter again. It is divided into 2 portions, each one shaped into a loaf, tucked and rolled until the surface is smooth and the seam is on the bottom. The loaves go into greased bread pans, covered again with the towel, and set aside for a second rise, shorter this time, just until they crown above the rim of the pans. The oven is lit and allowed to heat while the bread rises, the kitchen growing warmer, the smell of yeast becoming stronger. When the loaves are ready, they go into the oven, and you set the timer in your head, baking by smell and intuition as much as by time. The bread bakes for 35 minutes, the tops browning, the crust forming, and when you tap the bottom of a loaf and it sounds hollow, you know it is done. The loaves are turned out of their pans onto a wire rack to cool, steam rising from their tops, the crust crackling softly as it contracts. You butter the tops while they are still hot, the butter melting into a glossy sheen, and step back to admire your work. 2 perfect loaves of bread made by your hands from the simplest of ingredients. This is magic of a quiet kind, alchemy that happens in kitchens every day, unremarked and unrecorded. But you know what you have made, and it is good. Saturday afternoon is reserved for beauty, for the rituals of maintenance that keep you presentable, that allow you to face the world and your husband with confidence. This is not vanity, you tell yourself, though sometimes you wonder. This is necessity, the work required to meet the standards expected of a wife and mother in 1955, where appearance is not optional but mandatory. You begin with your hair, which has not been professionally styled since your wedding day, but which you maintain yourself with curlers, pins and determination. The bathroom becomes your salon, the mirror your judge, and you set to work with the focused attention of someone performing surgery. First, the hair is washed in the sink, leaning over the basin, your neck bent at an uncomfortable angle as you work shampoo through your scalp. The water runs warm, then cool for the final rinse, which is supposed to make your hair shinier, though you have never been entirely convinced this is true. You wrap your hair in a towel, turbaning it on top of your head, and pat your face dry. While your hair is still damp, you apply setting lotion, a thin, sticky liquid that smells faintly medicinal and promises to help your curls hold. You comb it through, section by section, and then begin the process of rolling your hair onto curlers, small pink plastic tubes that you secure with metal clips. Each section is rolled carefully, the tension even, the curl uniform. You have learned through trial and error exactly how tight to roll for the best results. Tight enough to create a curl that will last, loose enough to avoid the frizz that comes from over-rolling. The curlers march across your scalp in neat rows, transforming your head into something that looks more mechanical than human. When every strand is rolled, you tie a scarf over the curlers to keep them in place and move on to the next task. Your nails are filed, shaped into neat ovals, the edges smoothed with an emery board. The cuticles are pushed back gently with an orange stick, and then each nail is painted with clear polish, 2 coats, allowing time between for drying. While the polish dries, you attend to your face. Cold cream is applied and massaged in, breaking down the week's accumulation of dirt and oil, and then wiped away with a warm cloth. A mask follows, a homemade mixture of egg white and lemon juice that tightens your skin and makes you look vaguely alarming for the 20 minutes it takes to dry. You sit very still while the mask does its work, your face immobilized, reading a magazine or simply staring at the ceiling, waiting. When the time is up, you rinse it away with warm water, your skin feeling tight and smooth, and follow with a light application of cold cream to moisturize. Your eyebrows are plucked, stray hairs removed one by one, the shape refined and maintained. This hurts, but beauty often does, and you have learned to accept the small pains that come with being a woman. The curlers come out last, each one unrolled carefully, the curls springing free. You do not brush them yet, just let them fall naturally, and then you begin the process of styling, pinning, smoothing, coaxing the curls into the shape you want. Bobby pins are secured invisibly, hairspray is applied in a fine mist, and gradually your hair takes on the polished appearance that will last through the week if you sleep carefully and maintain it with nightly brushing. When you're finished, you examine yourself in the mirror. Your hair is smooth and styled, your nails are neat, your skin is fresh. You look like the woman you're supposed to be, put together and proper, a wife who takes care of herself. The bathroom is littered with the evidence of your work, curlers and pins and cotton balls and bottles. You clean it all up, putting each item back in its place, and emerge into the rest of the house, transformed. Your husband will notice, or he will not. Your children will not care. But you will know, and that knowledge will carry you through another week of early mornings and endless tasks. You have maintained yourself. You have met the standard. And for now, that is enough. And just like that, the day is done. The alarm will ring again tomorrow morning, the coffee will percolate on the stove, and the whole rhythm will begin once more. But for now, the house is quiet, the work is finished, and sleep is finally within reach. We have walked through a full day in the life of a 1950s housewife, from the pre-dawn darkness to the last moments before sleep, and what we have found is not glamour or simplicity, but something deeper. We have found work, real work, the kind that fills hours and tests patience and leaves you tired in ways that are hard to explain. We have found care, constant and quiet, given without fanfare or expectation of praise, and we have found dignity in the ordinary, in the small acts of tending and maintaining that hold a household and a life together. The women who lived this way did not think of themselves as historical figures. They were not performing for an audience or preserving a way of life. They were simply doing what needed to be done, day after day, with hands that grew rough and backs that grew tired, but with a steadiness that kept the world turning for the people they loved. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your own rest, think about the coffee pots filled the night before, the bread baked by hand, the sheets hung in the sunlight, the homework patiently explained. Think about the women who woke before dawn and worked past dark, whose labour was invisible but essential, whose days were made of 1,000 small gestures of care. Maybe tomorrow you slow down for just a moment. Maybe you fold something with a little more attention, or notice the way the light falls across your kitchen counter, or take a breath between tasks and feel grateful for the quiet rhythms that still hold us even now. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just a Tuesday morning in 1955, and someone making breakfast and the day beginning again, steady and sure. Rest well. You have earned it. And so did they. Good night.